Hey. Oh, see, they hate it when I pull my head away from the microphone, but everybody, you understood I was saying hey to you. Okay, so hey, it's Rick. Welcome back to the Sound Horizons podcast brought to you by Toontrack. I am here once again proving that we know and get to communicate with the coolest people in the music industry, bar none. Today's guest, it's beyond conversation. If you're going to play a game in the music industry, like the 6 degrees of separation from Kevin Bacon, but we have our version of it, it's 6 degrees from this guest today. You're going to meet him right now. You're going to love watching me talk to him, listen to me talk to him, whatever you're doing right now. I think the point is you're just going to have a good time. Ladies and gentlemen, friends, Romans, countrymen, and all the other people I haven't met or don't know yet, please join me in spending some time with your new friend and mine, Fred Coury. Fred Coury, good morning, sir.
Good morning. How are you?
You know, it doesn't matter. I'm just here doing the
Matters to me.
Well, I am fine. If it matters to you, then it's perfect. So I'm going to jump right in to explain that comment I made, because everybody I know in our industry is literally less than 6 degrees away from you somehow. You come up in so many conversations. It's like you talk to someone, well, you know Fred. I'm like, everybody knows Fred Coury. And for those of you that don't know, you should know, but for those of you who don't, a big part of Fred's career is as a drummer, playing in all kinds of amazing bands. We're going to talk a little bit about that, but you also seem to be the only human being available when someone's in the middle of a tour already and gets hurt or can't. It's like, well, there's only one person we're allowed to call. That's Fred Coury. He's going to come save the day. So explain this networking phenomenon of how you seem to be the only person in our industry everyone knows.
I don't know that. I didn't know that, and I'm glad. But yeah, the whole thing with the call-in in the middle of a tour, I kind of love that, and I want to keep doing it. I see, because I was a violinist since I was a little kid, I chart out everything so I can learn. I could be set ready in a day.
Wow.
And try to do the inflections of that drummer, not playing for myself, right? So
right.
I was talking to a friend yesterday who is just about to go on tour. He's a singer. We were talking about drums and how I feel every part is a lyric. And so for anybody to get up on stage, whether you're a guitar player or a bass player or a drummer, if you change anything from what the kids know, and by the kids, they're all kids now are like 60 years old, but
yes,
they are all, they know every single part, kind of basically they know every single lyric. And I won't change that.
So ironically, a big part of your journey starts with you filling in for a drummer. You're doing some work with Ozzy, and I mean, you had obviously lots of drumming and music experience before that, but a lot of things start to turn in the early '80s. You do some shows with Ozzy. Was that for you? I guess with any of them, do you treat them all the same, or when you get into one, is one more pressureful to you than the other? Obviously, I know you want to do a great job, but is there any one that sticks out where you're like, ooh, all right, this is going to be a little more demanding?
No, they're all tons of pressure. Every single one of them it's the most important gig on the planet.
Wow.
No matter who it is, it has to be that. Yeah, because every one of those bands are depending on you to get them through whatever it is, or get them, past. Everyone knows the core band, whether it's Ricky Rocket or Kelly Keagy or Steven Adler, whatever it is, they know that's the band. And I just need to seamlessly come in and kind of disappear in the background and make it sound like that drummer is playing, whoever it is. And that's, rather than coming and check me out. It's like, it's not. It's like, I have to make that work. So every single gig is the most intense, heavy pressure, important gig on the planet.
Well, when you try and blend in with the band, and now do you traditionally play that drummer's gear, or do you bring your gear and you're kind of set up to as more of a
No, I play
comfort.
theirs.
You play there, so it's
Yeah.
already out there, so you just kind of morph into whatever kit they've already got going.
Yeah, and like the tech will just adjust a couple of things, but like Kelly Key, I was on the side of the stage,
It's weird, right?
looking at Jack and looking at the guys sideways. I'm like, this is so weird. But the cool thing was there was a big floor tom to my left that Kelly had. So I had to sing all the parts. Either Tommy Shaw, I sang his parts for Damn Yankees, and then Kelly's parts for Back and Forth. I did not do Sister Christian. But I had, so it was a twofold thing. It was great because it hid my fat. And then the second thing it did is I was able to write the lyrics on that.
Okay. Oh, that's cool.
Ran outside this hotel in the back of a Chevrolet. And that was, so I would be able to peek down on that. So I had lyrics written on all of the drums because there's a lot of vocal things that happen with Night Ranger. So I was glad to be able to play their kit, but it's always their kit. I'm in the service industry. I'm providing a service, and that service costs money. Now, do you want the ticket? I'm sorry, that was the thing for going back to Fast Times, but I'm in the service industry, and I'm servicing the band with whatever they need to make it comfortable, where they just look over and it's just a different face, but hopefully it sounds the same that they're used to.
Okay, I want to pivot because I came in hot. I needed to point out your 6 degrees of separation from everyone in the music industry. And anyone in the industry that's watching, and I know a lot of you are watching, you know I'm right. You all know Fred somehow through someone. So literally, if you know Fred, you can pretty much touch anyone else in the industry. Put it in the comments. Let me know who you're going to use Fred to network to. This will be a fun game we play. But okay, so that's one facet of what you do, but the majority of your time, as of late, for many, many moons now, has been as a composer for film and television. And you've had the opportunity to do a number of different series that have been pretty successful and that ultimately keep getting renewed. You've also had this really cool sort of, like, I don't even know how to... until you did it, I didn't even realize this was the thing people were doing. It's for your relationship with the LA Kings and the song, and then that turned into their reality show. So I guess instead of boring everyone, including yourself, with, well, when I was 8, it's like, okay, so everyone knows you're a rock star, you're in a rock band, things change. We could talk about how the industry changes, but at some point in time, you're on tour, I'm presuming, and you think, when this ends, I'm going to have to do something else. What is that transition from super duper rock star to I'm going to maybe get in the studio and start doing music for this other avenue that you're also clearly interested and talented with?
Well, I always thought I was going to get 15 minutes, right? So there was no doubt in my mind that I was going to get in this industry and I was going to make it. But I thought it was going to be 15 minutes. And I thought it was a one and done, because every time you still get surprised that it's happening, in a way. It's like, so I always thought that I need to, I don't say a fallback plan, because people say you have to have something to fall back on, because if you do, you're going to fall back, right?
Sure.
So everybody does it. So I had no fallback plan, but I wanted to expand and do other things. I was a violinist since I was 5. So I had the classical training, and then now I'm in a rock band. And during the whole thing, I've always been programming. Like when I first got my little computer, way back at the beginning, it was I think it was called Studio One or something.
Studio Vision Pro.
Studio Vision Pro, right?
Correct. Yeah.
So I was doing, that is it, opcode. So I was trying to, and it was just like it's the same thing as now, and then trying to play with it. And so I didn't know that it would turn into this, because they didn't have it back then. Nothing other than those little drum machines or a couple of synths or something. So in touring, you meet more people, and I met Luke Robitaille way back in the beginning, because I was a hockey fan, and I got to know the guys at the Kings, and then they give you tickets, and it's the whole there's celebrities, and there's rock stars, and there's sports people, and everybody wants to do something else. Like I want to be a baseball player. They want to be rock and rollers, and everybody wants. So he used to come out, him and Marty McSorley and Kelly Rudy and Mike Donnelly and all these guys used to always come out to rehearsal or to our
Wow.
shows. In fact, if you looked on the first and second, maybe the third, all three Cinderella records, you'll see special thanks. Luke Robitaille, Marty McSorley, Kelly Rudy. You'll see all the guy Donnelly. You'll see all those guys listed on definitely with the first and second records. So we were friends forever. And in going to those games, I'd always notice, because we were playing the same arenas, I would always notice the music was the same from
Mhm.
arena to arena to arena to arena. And I decided at one point, I was like, I'm just going to write a thing that I think would be cool for the Kings. And then I sent it in 3 times. I had lost touch with Luke. I had moved back to Nashville and I'd see him once in a while, but we weren't chatting daily. And I didn't want to, hey, Luke, here, I have some music for you. It's just, kind of cheesy. So I tried to go the proper route and send it to somebody at who I thought would be head of the music or something to do with the Kings. I didn't even know if they had that. And so I kept sending it in every 6 months because I'd wait 6 months and I'd not hear back and I'd send it in again. And same piece of music for 3 years.
Wow.
And then finally, my wife knew somebody that worked directly with the Kings and with Luke, and they were best friends since childhood. And she was like, "Oh, you're trying to get something to the Kings? I'll take it right to Luke. We're going on a retreat this weekend." And then Luke said he heard it and he said, "Who is this?" He says, "It's your friend Fred from years ago." He goes, "I want to talk to him." So he brought me in and he said, "Hey, I have this idea. You can see the team coming with a logo. I want to hear the team coming with a logo that we can hear, like a theme." And I said, "Okay, so I want a new goal song and I want a theme." And we had a little chat about what he likes goal song wise. And he said, "I'll give you a 3-year deal to start."
Wow.
And so that was 16 years ago. And we're still doing it. And it opened up everything for me because everyone I started scoring to picture, not knowing I was scoring to picture, right? So, um, there's like, "We wanna do something on the Jumbotron, and here's what we have, we want new music." So, I'd start doing that, and then I am on the advisory board, and at that time, it was Jerry Bruckheimer, Joey Vendetta from Live
Jeez.
Nation,
Yeah.
Gabe Sachs, who's a big showrunner, all these guys. Everybody is at Tom Hanks's kid. Everybody's here, and it's like everybody's putting their 2 cents in, and one thing leads to another, and there's a new opportunity. "Hey, I like what you're doing here. I like what you're doing there, and then you wanna come in and try this," and that's really how everything took off for TV and film. I went to school. I went to UCLA, for film composing, and then I did the Berkeley, uh, online master class. I still go to, take classes
Sure.
with the same instructor that I had at Berkeley. Guy's amazing. And, because you're always learning. And that's how this whole thing happened. Gabe Sachs he said, "I have a show that's going to be greenlit on NBC. And if it really does go, you're going to be the composer." It was a medical drama, which I think is like the hardest thing to get. And I was
I was
like,
gonna
"No."
ask, so was that a little nerve-wracking? I mean, obviously, you had you have a foot in the world. You're a hockey fan, so you have you're immersed in the world already. You have friends. You kind of get it. It's like this is a thing you're into. But now, like you said, so now there's this. Well, this is a cool opportunity, but I don't know. Are you Are you a big medical television show fan as well that
It
ever
was,
studied the TV cues?
no, it's alien, completely alien to me. I'm like, a lot of the guys come up the ranks. They're an assistant, an apprentice to somebody, and they're learning what they're doing. They see how they do it. I just literally went to school for it. I'm just fresh out of school, and and he handed that to me. The I think these shows are like really expensive to do. So like
Incredibly,
$100
yeah.
million bucks or something. So it was terrifying. And I said, "Give me some advice." And he said, "Don't screw it up."
It's the
And
best
that was
advice you
it.
can get. That's it.
Yeah. So, you know, uh, that's
Do
how it
you
really started.
in that moment and as you move forward, so from a composition standpoint, do you find yourself relying more on Fred the violin player or Fred the drummer or both?
All of it.
All of it.
All of it. Yeah. Well, let me rewind. The first person to give me a chance in TV was Gene Simmons. So I was running down the street one day and I see Gene across the street and I hadn't spoken to him for years. I was just jogging. And I said, I'm going to go say hi. I haven't seen him in a long time. And I walked over and I said, hey, Gene. And he, Uncle Fred, hi, Uncle Fred, how are you? And the conversation ended up, what are we doing these days? I said, well, I'm a television composer. I really wasn't, kind of. I was doing things for the Kings that
Yeah.
was on TV, but I
Sure.
really wanted to be a TV composer. He goes, is that right? Are we any good? And I said, we're very good. Because
Nice.
what else are you going to say?
Right. You can't.
And
Yeah.
especially to Gene. Oh, I don't know.
Yeah.
We're very good. Walk with me, he said. And we walked down the street and they were shooting Family Jewels. And he introduced me to his producer and he said, this is our old friend, Fred. He says he's a television composer. Let's see if he's any good. And if he's good, let's put him to work. And then he turned to me and he said, how's that? I said, I can't ask for anything else. So I FedExed the next day. I FedExed over a bunch of music that I had done, a lot of things from class, and a lot of things that I'd just made on my own. And they called me a couple of days later and they gave me season 3 of
Wow.
Family Jewels. So, and then when I asked Gene, everybody's like, what did he take? I said, Gene, what do you want for this? What is your cut? Whatever it is, just let me know. And he said, I don't want anything. He said, I just want you to turn this into gold because it's not going to happen again. Turn this into something. And so he really gave me a great opportunity, a great chance. And then Gabe Sachs gave me the big show, which opened everything up.
So at the speed in which all this is happening, while this is happening with the Kings and everything else, are you still going out for long tours? Is that slowing down? Is it
I was doing tours. Yeah, I was trying to find an exit plan because I saw this other opportunity that I wanted to do, and I knew that's something I can do until I'm 80. And the venues are getting a little smaller, and I just like I had the same emotional feeling that I wanted to be I just wanted to be a rock star.
Yeah.
And I had that feeling inside and I knew I could taste it. I knew I was going to do it somehow. I had that same feeling for this, for TV.
Okay.
And I just knew I have to get there. And
So
so we were touring. Yeah.
this is all happening though. So in the periphery of all these things happening, now you get these opportunities. How do you manage the actual the component of, do you have a home studio already? Are you going to major studios in the beginning? Are you piecing things together? What does that look like? Because it sounds like a lot of this is happening very quickly and technology wasn't as easily accessible at the onset of your career as it is now. So as you're learning these things and making these decisions, how are you getting the work done from a gear standpoint?
Yeah. So I have a studio. I still have it. I have a studio in like a pro studio in North Hollywood by Burbank. And it's grown a lot as well because they had a little room. I needed a place to go, and I was over at this place called Mates. My friend Bobby owns this rehearsal studio called Mates. And I just had a drum room there, and I had a little computer, and I was just recording myself and learning how to do things and keyboards and synths and whatnot, using a lot of loops, using that program Acid way back in the beginning,
Nice.
and and so in this studio, I started recording artists and uh, just having people come over and recording. And as technology kept growing, so did I'm just a gear freak. I just like to buy things. So I would buy little things. In fact, I was working on something with George Lynch. And he said, do you have any cool gear? And I was like, yeah, I got this PreSonus Central Station he goes like, no, like, do you have any mic pre's? I'm like, huh? And he said, need SSL, API, anything like that. And I was like, no. And he goes, well, you gotta get that stuff. I mean, so now I have all of it, right? So, and because he's cost me so much money, that friggin' guy. So, but every time you meet somebody, they put a little bug in your ear, or that's how you grow. Like he told me that, so my gear immediately started getting really serious.
Hmm.
So everything's, the front end is analog, and my monitor switching has gone from something not so great to crane song, and my speakers have gone from these little so and so not to be mentioned to ATC, and it's like everything keeps growing and getting bigger, and hopefully gear, there is something to be said, even like playing hockey. If you have crappy skates, you're not going to skate as well as you're going to
No,
if you have the
no.
state of the art skates. And it's the same. You still have to have kind of the knowledge to do it, but you don't want to hinder yourself with bad gear. Like you have bad sounding strings. You can be writing the greatest stuff on the planet. It's still not going to sonically sound great or believable.
Hmm.
So, um, so my studio grew with that, and I have a home studio that is identical to that one, just without any of the analog front end and no drums here.
Hmm.
So the drums are at the other place, and we're building a studio now here at the house that's going to house the drums, and I'll close the other place eventually
Ooh,
because there's no
okay.
time to get over there. I wanted to get to the studio today to do this, but I had to work this morning on something. I'm
Sure.
doing the Detroit Tigers at the moment, so I couldn't get to the studio. And
No,
I was like,
no.
okay, I'll just do it here at home, and then I'll just go right back and
I'm surprised you can get anywhere in California at all without at least a 3 hour lead time. But do you still get the chance to play hockey at all? Do you still go out and skate or do anything, or do
No,
you?
I don't skate at all anymore. I'm
Yeah.
turning into an old guy, and my back is not letting me do it.
Do you watch or have you watched the amazing hockey series from Canada, Shoresy, which
That's
is
so dumb. It's so dumb. I love that line. I love Shorty. It's the
it's
greatest.
the greatest. It's fantastic, right?
I love that show so much. I miss it so much already. I can't wait for the new
Yeah.
season. And what I really loved about it, the music that they use. So there's no composer on that.
Right? The cues
Whoever-
in all of Letterkenny and Shoresy are incredible.
Unbelievable.
I don't know how they
have
do
a
it.
whole Shoresy playlist. Like I was like, who does the music? And there is not a guy. It's the editor, whoever that is. And then so I just have all the pieces of music. And when it just cuts to black, and boom, that song comes. They're just so good, and it just
But
goes
see,
slow motion.
I am so happy to hear you say that because I have always felt with all of Jared Kiso's stuff that whoever is managing the music, if it's a music supervisor, whoever, really is in touch spiritually with not only the show and the right type of music for the show, but the people watching it. Because every time a song comes on, I'm like, how is that the perfect? I've never heard it because that's another great thing they do is they use all these great indie artists and they expose you to all these cool new acts you've never heard of, and then you start to really second guess whether you even want to live in America anymore because they all turn out to be Canadian bands. You're like, the music scene seems way cooler in Canada than here right now, but
Right.
it's purposefully driven, wonderful music. So I'm glad to hear a composer actually comment on the state of that really cool. I mean, because I find it to be amazing.
No, it's emotionally perfect. That's the main. That's what music does. And when people say, a lot of people come up to me and say, "Hey, can you place my song in a TV show?" I'm like, "Okay, first of all, that's a different job. That's a music supervisor.
Yeah.
Secondly, I don't put songs. I don't write songs for TV shows. And then I just have to break it down to the easiest way to understand. I write emotion with musical instruments. Period. And that's what it's for. If you're going to cry, well, some of it's on the screen, a lot of it's going to be the music. If you just have anxiety and somebody's running, it's the music. So Shoresy, they do it with tracks, and they do it so perfectly. It's like I'm always picking up my phone and Shazamming. It's really, really great.
You made my day. Good. I'm not going crazy. So I want to talk a little bit about though. I mean, so you end up joining this musical movement in the 80s, the glam metal, hair metal. I mean, it's just such a dumb title when I look back on it, but that's what we're gonna call it because it just makes everyone for easy to grab. But I mean, you're part of kind of the core community. Like when I think of you, I think of Cinderella is one of those bands that's kind of a cornerstone of that whole thing taking off in the mid 80s and in the late 80s. And you have clearly pointed out that you're still very much involved with and in contact with a lot of the people that you kind of came up with, toured with. Is that a byproduct of you as a human being, or is that something that is residual to the actual community itself? Because on the other hand, I hear there are some guys that came up in the industry that aren't buds with the, that they don't seem to still have that same kind of, we're all still helping one another out. Of course, many of your peers are still touring. Even Cinderella every once in a while still goes out. So how does that work for you? Do you look at the group of friends you have as a result of just you and how you embrace the industry, or is that community as tight as a lot of people really give it credit for being?
I don't know if it is. For me personally, uh, they're my friends, right? And it's just they just have cooler jobs than the other person, right?
Right.
So
Yeah.
the funny thing is that when you do get any sort of success like that at a young age, we got really freaking famous.
Yeah.
Uh, we didn't change, at least in my band. We really, put the hammer down to don't get an ego, don't get out of control. And that I couldn't have been, I'm so grateful that I was in my band
Mm.
because we didn't have any of the drugs. We didn't have any of the
No.
didn't have any of the issues. We were the party pooping band. Um, and it was all really good people that kind of kept everybody kind of normal. But I did realize that people around me would change
Mm.
and they would assume we would be a different way. Uh, but we weren't, but they would change. And I noticed that with a lot of my closer friends that they thought I would have this ego. So they were treating me differently. I don't know if it was a jealousy or something. I remember driving from a little town in upstate New York, Johnson City, which is right next to Binghamton.
Mm.
And I remember driving. I had just come home off a tour, and I was visiting my mom, and I was driving, and I was going over this freeway, and this guy pulls up and honks his horn at me, and he's like, "Roll down the window." And I did. I rolled down the window, and he goes, "Hey, you're Fred Coury?" And I go, "Yeah." And he goes, "You suck." And he flips me off, and he goes, I'm like, "Oh, here we go."
Nice.
And it hurts.
Yeah.
It's like, wow, why did that guy do that? Like, why did he do that? Um, so my friends started becoming the friends that I had in this other little community that were all probably being treated the same way. Like now I'm in this boat with these people. And I've hopefully maintained most of those relationships as just friends because they get it. And yeah,
When you got there and you realized you were there, like you did it, you're the rock star. You're this guy. This is you on the cover of Night Songs. You're doing the thing, right? Was it what you thought it would be?
I thought I'd be taller.
Wah, wah. No, was the experience though? I mean, again, there was a really good run where you're in the Billboard top 10. Your videos are, I mean, you are an identifiable human being at this point in time because music in our culture here, at least actually worldwide, was a culture. It was a thing, right? So your pictures are in magazines. Was that experience for you as a person? Is it what you thought it was, or was it different in some way?
It's a great question. I didn't know what to expect. It was great. Let's start there. It was friggin'
Sure.
awesome. The
Yeah.
greatest thing ever. Um, I don't know what I expect. I really did. I thought I'd be taller. I didn't know what to expect. Um, yeah, I really didn't know. It continues to be everything that's like surprising and beautiful and wonderful and there's some downsides like the people flipping you off or whatever
Sure.
when you're doing it. But no, I was always kind of I still pinch myself.
Mm.
Like, are you kidding? Or if I get a show, this one of the biggest producers in Hollywood, Dean Devlin, is a friend of mine, and he gave me 2 shows that just continuously get renewed, and they just keep going. And it's like, one's a sci-fi show and one's like this cop drama that's really friggin' funny. And and it's like, I pinch myself every day that I get up and do this, or I get to talk to you, and you're like, "Hey, you wanna do this podcast?" I'm like, "Me?
Yeah.
Why?" I'm still in that mind. And I think because we had so much success so quickly, we didn't have time to sit down and let it sink in. We were constant. Our first tour was 18 months, and we were going and going and going and going. We got off the road and went right into the writing phase, into studio, and then out and out and out. And so we were working so much that I don't think it, you know.
Yeah. Well, and again, to your point though, it, I always joke if you weren't there, and a lot of our viewers and listeners weren't. Time seemed to move much slower back then, and at the same time, especially when it came to music and the people you were, fans of. As a lifelong, completely and thoroughly demented Kiss fan, for instance, you didn't really think about the gaps between records. You got a record and you lived in that record or that tour or that merch until the next one came out. And the length of time was only something pointed out by, jerk off journalists or stupid people that had nothing else to do. So same thing in the 80s, Night Songs comes out. Here's this thing. You're on tour with everybody. You do a thing. And then the next thing you know, I'm still living in that record and Long Cold Winter comes out. And the only real change is Night Songs is kind of the odd man out in the trilogy because Heartbreak Station, Long Cold Winter, I'm sure you guys get this all the time, very blues based, very, very more kind of classic rock at the time based, whereas Night Songs certainly had a much heavier, darker sort of, and it's all relative, but it's certainly, Back Home Again would not work well on Long Cold Winter. That just wouldn't happen.
Right.
As you guys are growing, and you're changing. Obviously, you're getting closer. You're on the road. You're spending more time with these dudes than your family. Is there a conscious decision when you're writing the songs where it's like, okay, you know what? We're going to kind of stray away from maybe this and move a little more to the blues rock thing, or was it natural?
I think it's natural. Tom is the songwriter, and it's whatever he felt. So during Night Songs, the tour, they were so long, he was always writing. And I don't think there were any remnants that went on to the second record. It was all kind of fresh, but you grow and you have more influences and you get to watch these great bands. Like after, you get to see all the bands that you're playing with and see these pro guys just crushing it. And as you're growing and listening to more things, I could play you the same 10 artists and then you write a song and I'm going to listen to the same 10 artists and write a song. And we're going to have little inflections or little pieces of all of that, but we're going to write different songs. And I think that, but it's going to have some of the feel of that stuff. And I think that's what happened with these two. And then Heartbreak Station, that really did take a turn. That was way less hard rock and almost had some country influences. And we recorded that in a bunch of different studios, so in different cities. We did New York City, and John Paul Jones did the string arrangements, and we had a live orchestra, and some of it we did in Bogalusa, Louisiana, in a place called Studio in the Country that's like way out in the sticks, and it's like, I think Dead Man's Road, and it just things like that there. And then we did mixing in LA, and we were in Philadelphia, and every place that we went had a little bit of that feel. So just like the place can have the feel, just living and listening to different things also inspires the music in a certain way. And then there were some things from the demo that made it to, what was that other record? Still Climbing.
Yeah.
That was the last one. I was already out of the band by then. And that had things like Talk Is Cheap. The demos for Talk Is Cheap were insane. And that's one thing Tom could do is when we heard the demo for Shelter Me. It's almost better than the record. I mean, it
Really?
was so great. Yeah, yeah, he's talented
We
again.
you bring up the transition. So at some particular point in time, you leave Cinderella and you go and start a super group with Stephen Pearcy from Rat. You do Arcade. And during that time, I mean, this is very well documented. So sorry for the cliche, but I mean, the industry changes drastically in the early '90s. Things Was that change from the inside as abrupt as it seemed to us on the outside, or was it worse?
When nobody was buying our
Yeah,
records anymore.
yeah.
No, it was kinda sudden. I'm gonna go on record and say, I don't think it was everybody said, "Oh, it was Nirvana and it was grunge."
I don't
It
think that at all. So
No, it
I'm with you.
was I I just think we were all getting the snare drums were getting too big, the hair was getting too big, the reverb was getting too big, it was just getting too much of everything is not good. And I think at the same time, we all gave records to our fans that wasn't
Hmm.
the same thing that they were um, used to. I
Hmm.
think we were growing.
That's a great
And
observation, though. Yeah.
I
Wow.
think so, but AC/DC, there's that old famous interview with Angus, and the lady's like, "You've done 12 records and they sound very similar." And he goes, "Actually, we've done 13 and they're exactly alike." So, um, they just gave their fans exactly the same thing.
I certainly don't want to discount the fact that musical styles change, but to your point, I had never pieced that part together. That most of the standard bearers of the genre were doing very very different records than the records that had
We're
made
growing.
them the standard.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, they
and
were growing and the crowd seemed to want one thing. And then you do get Nirvana at the time, which is just a freaking bare bones rock band.
yeah.
Anybody says anything about, whatever it is, they were just a hard rock band.
When
Straight up
you
and
talk
down.
about growth, and it's pretty funny when your fan base generally cuts the sleeves off their t-shirt, growth is not the priority on their mind. I would say, looking back, hindsight being 2020 and all, it's if you're cutting the sleeves off your t-shirt, I'm going out on a limb and saying change is not your thing. You would think someone that makes a lot more money than me would have figured that out at all the major labels,
That's
but
right.
I digress. Okay, so
And that's all my opinion anyway. My opinion
yeah,
is
well,
really
it's
wrong.
pretty good. You were
So,
there though, so you get to have an opinion. You actually
yeah.
experienced it.
Yeah.
So the journey is very different now. Okay, so now we fast forward to 2024. You've been there, you've done that, you know them, you're there. So are you at peace with not only what you're doing now and your legacy, or do you still have more things you want to prove and try to do
Oh, I
in
have some.
either? Yeah.
So much more I want to do. I want to do one more big tour,
Okay.
not necessarily with our band. It,
Sure.
I want to go out and do something huge because all my other friends are out there playing stadiums and big arenas, and I still have it in. I've been away, so everybody's trying to get off the road.
Right.
When they're on the road, they're like, "Oh man, I wish I could do something like you." And I want to do one more because I do miss it and I
Hmm.
do feel comfortable. And that's what got me there. And I'm grateful. I don't look back at it and say no. Then if it is Cinderella, we've never spoken about doing something, great. And if not, that's fine too. Um, so I do want to do something there. And I'm just getting started in this TV career. So
Yeah, but
yeah,
you seem like a grizzled vet. I mean, from when you look at your resume, it doesn't seem like you're just getting started. I think that's one of the really cool things about it. And I mean, Duck, Here Comes the Love. That's not the road everybody takes, but there's something clearly intrinsic in the way you approach whatever you're going to be doing in our industry. That just you have no choice but to be successful at it. I'm sorry, it's just you're gonna have to deal with it. That's why I ask. Obviously you're married, you've got your family, you've got your career, you've got all the accolades. The sports thing, like I said, is a whole other universe. I mean, even though I look at them as parallel, like a composition, but the sports entertainment world, as you will, is its own stratosphere. It's like a whole different world than Hollywood or rock and roll. It's kind of like the combination of both, really. It is its own universe with its own fans, and I know you're a NASCAR fan too, are you not? Are
I'm a
you not?
NASCAR fan. I've not
So
ever done music for NASCAR.
Yet.
Sports team. Yeah. Yeah. Only sports teams. The pressure from the sports teams, they need things done quick, especially the Trailblazers, because I have to be on call with these guys because they let's say they're working on a video. We're doing something now. They're working on a video. They're working on it for a month. Everybody's doing their part, putting it in, getting things from media day, which is a day that all of the team is there and they're able to be interviewed by everybody. And every team has a media day. And it's like, yeah, everything to do with the team is there at the arena or at the stadium, and all of the media from around the world can come and talk to them. And so they get all this stuff together and they present it, and the powers that be say, whoa, 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 this is not going to work. Let's change it. And they have a week to turn up the whole thing. And then, so I got a call like the day before yesterday, hey, we need this piece of music. It's got to be 2 minutes. By the way, when people say 2 minutes of music, it doesn't take 2 minutes to do. You got to say 2 to 3 hours for every minute. After you figure out, if you're doing orchestral, after you figure out what the piece is going to be and how it has to, where it's got to switch and where it's got to, and they said, we need it by tomorrow. Can it be done? And the answer is always, yes.
See you tomorrow, sir.
Yeah. And you have to turn it around and you get it done. And when I find when those things happen, that's the pressure I was talking about, like working under pressure. You do without thinking. It's in you and you just do it and you crank it out. And I guess that's being in the zone, right? When you're just doing autopilot, crank it out. And I'm just so grateful that it got done and I got to deliver it. But that's so much pressure, because if you don't, it's like, this is why you're here. Nobody cares if your internet doesn't work. They don't care if your computer's gone down. They don't care if I'm sitting in an earthquake like I was 2 days ago. I'm sitting at the desk trying to do it and going like this and go, wow, what the frig? It's an earthquake. So they just want it done, and that's my job. So that's the pressure of it. But
so I'm asking everyone the same question. So given this is kind of a nice segue, and then we'll start to wind down because we're going to play the speed round in a minute. But here's the question: even after all the successes, and even though you're currently you're killing it, do you still deal, or have you ever dealt with imposter syndrome? Or do you still feel like they're going to figure out I'm not the right guy for the job, or I'm not good? Is that a concern of yours?
Every
or do you
moment of my life. Yes, absolutely. When it gets done, because you have to send it in to get notes, right? And you get notes and you're like, when are they going to realize I'm terrible? And you really, I think we all do though. And you get a show.
Everyone I've talked to has a version of the same answer. The first person that doesn't have it, I'm going to fly out and punch in the throat. So I just want to.
Terrified by it. Hey, I have this new show. Great. Killer. I can kill it. It's going to be great. And day one, you sit down and you stare at your computer and you go, I have no freaking idea what I'm doing.
I appreciate you sharing that with us, because I think it's encouraging for people to understand that even after I've made it, if you really care about what you do and you really, really love this thing that you're involved in, you will always be in awe of it and always feel like you weren't good enough to be part of it.
100%. I'm always in awe of it. I can't believe I've gotten through it, and it's like, and if somebody likes it.
And you look back, you had mentioned earlier that you were glad Cinderella was the band, your band was the one you were in.
Mm-hmm.
This is where if you could have been in any other band, if you could have picked one other band that you would think you would have been just as happy in from that time, what band would it have been?
Journey, Motley Crue, Ozzy, Guns N' Roses. It just goes on. And I just wanted to get in a band with great songs, and I don't know. I'm thankful that I was in this band. I don't know if I would have lasted in some bands because they were partiers.
Sure.
I'm glad for So a story that I once told my mom, she was a little bit worried that I was going to go out on the road. You know, I'm an only kid and I was young, like 19. So she was really worried. And I said, Mom, don't worry. If there was any band for me to join, it's these guys. They're good people. They're not partiers. They really, none of our videos had any like bikini girls or fast cars. It was like, it was all about the music, only about the music, and just good human beings. And I still talk to Eric all the time, and I still talk to Tom and their brothers and their family. And I don't know how I would have done in another group. Would I have been influenced to party and go crazy? Would I want sleeves of tattoos? But I'm a Libra, so I can't make up my mind. I can't choose something. So,
Oh,
yeah, so that's pretty much that. Journey would have been a great one because I love Journey so much.
yeah, that's a rule. I think if you're from a certain generation, you have to love Kiss and you have to love Journey for very similar but very different reasons, right? So they're very. But
And
here's
let me go back to the Kiss thing.
yeah. Let's talk about
Because
Kiss all day.
Gene gave me my first TV gig. Eric Singer got me the Cinderella gig.
I had heard that rumor, and which is crazy because at the time Eric Singer wasn't in Kiss, but lo and behold, as fate changes and jobs open up, I mean,
Yeah.
Eric Singer, the longest running drummer in Kiss now.
So Paul, who I see every morning almost, he just lives across the street.
You suck so hard.
Hasn't done anything for me.
He graces you with his star child presence in your neighborhood. Be grateful.
Well, he does, and he's wonderful. He
So
came over and gave Amy. We were in a car, and I was thinking he had just a big bag of candy. He was like, "Hey, you want some candy?" And
that's pretty good. Great. That was good. That was a good impression, and I don't think I'm ever going to be able to look at Paul Stanley the same way again. Look, as we wind this down, I have a goofy. This is a drum-related question, and I'm going to take you back to the Shake Me video because you have this right after the guitar solo. There's this whole thing you guys are playing on stage. It's great, and you get the camera close up with the stick twirl. That's a thing that happens in Shake Me video, but I started having this conversation with other drummers from the time, and I want you to weigh in on it. When you learned how to twirl a stick,
yes,
were you aware that some guys went clockwise and others went counterclockwise? Or did you only figure that out after watching Tommy Lee go counterclockwise later in life?
Only watching people go counterclockwise after.
Right.
And I'm like, how the frig are you hitting the drum? Because I'm going this way and boom, I can hit a drum. And they're going, the guy from Alice Cooper, what's his, Glenn Sobel.
Yeah.
He does it with both hands and they're both going backwards. I'm like, what are you doing?
And did that blow your mind the first time you realized that you could go clock? I thought everybody used to go clockwise. And then again, it was I was just paying attention. There were so many videos where guys were twirling drumsticks. You're just on autopilot. But one day in my older life, I was paying attention to Tommy Lee. I was like, holy shit.
Tommy goes clockwise. He
can go both though. I'm like, I'm watching this slow-mo thing and I'm like, wait a minute. I don't know why it struck me as so crazy, but now that's all I pay attention to whenever anyone spins a stick is what direction they're spinning it. And then I get angry when it's counterclockwise and they're really good at it because it's hard to do.
I don't like the counterclockwise.
But it's so hard to do.
Well, I know, and I don't like them as people.
I
can do it with my right hand.
I can get behind this movement. I like this not liking them as people. There's something shifty. There's something shifty about someone that can do a counterclockwise. How do you cut people out of your life?
How do you throw a stick? You're out. I can, and with my left, I have to start in a traditional grip.
Right.
And then I can twirl it into a method.
Right.
I can't do
it the other way
stuff with my left hand. So I have this fancy thing with the left hand, but I don't play traditional. The right hand only goes this way. And one cool thing though, is I met a guy named, and I'm not this guy. Remember Vic Fox? Vic Fox,
yes.
He was a great showman with the twirling.
Absolutely.
Terrific. I met John Blackwell when he was playing with Prince.
Man.
He came to my studio think that they were rehearsing right next door. And he came to my studio and he had a pair of sticks with him. And I said, "Are those mine?" And he said, "Yeah." And he goes, "I'll tell you why. I used to watch videos of you in the 80s twirling your sticks. And that's how I started twirling sticks." I was like, "Are you
Oh
kidding
man,
me?" Yeah. So I was like, "Oh, this is incredible." Yeah. So
that's
that was
amazing. See, I'm not the only
one.
one. There were only 2 videos at the time, and then I'm going to close with this, just so you know. So your close-up, your eponymous close-up in "Shake Me" was one, but the only other video was "Since You've Been Gone" by The Outfield, and I swear it's the exact same moment in the song. It's after the guitar solo. For whatever reason, the cameramen were like, "This is where we're going to zoom in on the drummer because the drummer's going to do the stick twirl," and
Yeah.
it's not like a Tommy Aldridge, I'm about to beat the hell out of my drums stick twirl, but like a slow motion, like if you were going to write an instructional video between you and The Outfield, I would presume a lot of us learned how to twirl sticks from those moments. So for that, I need to thank you right now. So just thank you
Thank
for
you.
that.
You're welcome. Now you
Okay.
can we have to go the other way.
Yeah, no, not those people are all out of my life. Now I'm going to be really, really eagle-eyeing that badly. So I feel bad for all the people that I don't know that do it that I have to cut off.
Right.
So I want to end, because I could talk to you forever. So if I don't put an end on this, we're both going to be here for 7 hours, and that's how long it takes you to get to your studio. So I don't want to keep you out of it. So you've got all of these things are still obviously composition being prime and center. You're married, you've got your family, you've still a drummer, still available for tours, like you said. So as you balance all of these things out and you look at them sort of in the scope of your life right now, is there one facet of Fred Coury that you could share with us that you think is responsible for all of those things being able to work symbiotically? Is there one?
Prayer.
Yeah.
Prayer. I have such a connection. I grew up with that. I'm all about it. I read the Bible every day. And I'm not a Bible thumper or anything,
No.
but that's my focus. My mom told me that when I was young. I was about to go on that first tour. And that's probably why I never had any of those issues, because she said, "I'm not going to be watching you, but God is." And
That is stressful.
yeah,
You
that's
just
stressful.
you just
And
stressed
so
me out.
it's all prayer, and there is a power of prayer to me, and everything that I'm not good enough to do any of it. In my mind, I feel that I've always been guided, and there's so many close calls and near misses that I was just picked up and moved here, and I didn't understand why. And it was always, always way better. Prayer. That's the one thing that's done it all for me.
I love that. I love that you'd share that with us. I mean, again, I try not to pry into most.
God,
Well, I try. You
not
you try to
embarrassed.
keep that barrier where I still want there to be some anonymity for everyone I talk to, but I think that that's pretty amazing. Not that you've got the angle on prayer, but I've been doing this for a while now, and I talk to a lot of people, and it's the first time I've heard it. So I think it's worth repeating. I mean, everyone's journey is different, and what I think I like about your answer is you didn't have to think, like, you didn't hesitate for a moment. That's the indicator that, okay, like, this is, you've already thought this through. You've already thought through. I didn't even need to ask the question. You already had the answer in your mind. You've settled with, look, I'm at peace with where I am, and prayer is a huge component of how I got here. So you just keep moving forward. And I think that's what people want to hear. People, I think there, as I close, there's a great mystery to our industry on all facets in every area, and I understand why. I mean, it's a cool industry. We have very cool things we get to do, but like you said, you had alluded to earlier, at the end of the day, it's just a bunch of dudes hanging out with their friends, trying to stay in touch with this magical, mystical component of life they love called music. And anyone that says they've got it figured out is a liar. And anyone says they wouldn't change this, we're all lying all the time, because we all feel lucky to be here. We all are grateful that this is the path we get to follow. So I appreciate you more than you'll ever know. And with that, I'm going to pray that I don't run into any people that are twirling left-handed today, because then my day is going to get more complicated. And then I'm also going to start looking at real estate by you, because if I can live by Paul Stanley, That'd be like
Oh,
his
it's
night.
so great.
It would
Every
be
day.
his nightmare. It would be like,
Uh,
who's this
it's
guy
so
with a
great.
star painted on his eye, just hanging out in
It's
my driveway every day?
so nice. It's so cool. And you know, it's back to the whole thing. It's like, oh my gosh, it's him.
Yeah,
You know, it's so cool.
I
It's
love it.
That's why we all started playing, right?
Yeah, well, look, people say, did you want to be a rock star? And I always get specific. And I'm like, either wanted to be Luke Skywalker or Gene Simmons. And I somehow wanted those two things to be in the same universe. So that's a whole other podcast. Okay, listen. So get ready to duck. Here comes some love. We do love you, and we're grateful for you taking time out of your day. I know how busy you are. I know you've got a million things going on, but man, it is always humbling to us when people have time that they can share with us, and not only just with us, but with the people that are going to be watching. And I don't ever want you or anyone on the other side of this computer screen to think that you aren't super important to us, because you are, and we love you, man. And if there's anything we can do for you or yours, the answer is always yes. You know where I am. So with that, I'm going to ignore you for 5 seconds and tell these people goodbye, and then I'll come back and we'll.
Thank you.
So you've seen me do this a million times before. You've heard me crack the same jokes. You've heard me instruct you to go back to work and to leave the restroom and turn your phone off. And I'm going to hope that you do all those things now. Hopefully not in that order. But if you did, then that's fine. I'm Rick. This has been the Sound Horizons podcast, brought to you by Toontrack. And we can't wait for you to come back next week as we continue the amazing streak we promised you of talking to the coolest people in the music industry. So until then, be good to one another, be kind in the comments, or don't. I don't care. I'm not going to lie. I'm probably not going to read them. And then ultimately, just have the best week, day, month, whatever you want to have. Whatever you're going to do or have, just have the best of it and at it. We love you, and we'll talk to you all soon. Have a great day.